Hi, good morning everybody. I thought I would do a little video today on the way I do my aquarium maintenance and setups and procedures I use, and a little bit about my experience in aquariums. Quite a few years ago, back in the 80s, I owned a pet store. I had over 100 tanks in my pet store, and some of the procedures that I use I wanted to share with you, and I still use them today. I've been keeping aquarium fish since I'm in my 20s. I'm 65 now, and I see a lot of things on forums and stuff, and they're not all wrong, but some of the stuff they go about is kind of overkill. Sometimes you're doing things you don't really need to do, but I kind of wanted to share that with you today. So I've had pretty good success all the years there keeping fish in aquariums and that, so I thought I'd share with you a few procedures that I use. Alright, this is my 55-gallon tank here. Sorry about the reflection off the back. It's not easy to film glass. You tend to get all these reflections on it. This tank here has been set up now for about a month and a half, and I just have actually, to start out, I wanted to show you. You'll see a lot of these are minnows. These are the what do you call them, red rasbora minnows, and originally I started this tank and cycled it with the minnows. Use them because they're inexpensive. You know, you can get like for $2 you can get like 10 for $2, and I originally put 20 of them in here. I've got 16 left out of the 20 that I put in here, but their main purpose was to cycle the tank, let it go through the biological process. And I lost a couple because you get some ammonia levels to build up until the tank builds up enough bacteria to handle the waste of the fish. And in the meantime, I've added a few things. I've got a swordtail in here, and I've got a balloon molly. I'm here, and the balloon molly, I don't know where you can, the picture had a baby, and looks like a panda. And you can see a good picture of it, but that's a little panda molly that came from this this female balloon molly. I got a fantail guppy in here that she hasn't, if I can get her, she's looking straight at us. She hasn't had her babies yet, but she's due. I really need to probably separate her to save the babies, because the bigger fish will eat the babies, and so I've played with that a little bit. But as you can see, this tank is nice and crystal clear, and one of the reasons it stays clear is a good filtration system. And up in the back, you can see I have a power filter that hangs over the back, the inlet there. And this tank here came from one of these starter kits that basically got at Walmart. And this is what they give you as far as the filtration system, and it's not enough. You know, it's a good start, but it's not enough. So I've added a sump filter to this. Your filtration is one of the biggest things. It's the heart of your system. Without proper filtration, it can run into things like cloudy water. You know, your biological load isn't big enough to handle the amount of fish that's in them. And actually, you talk about load, the minnows that I've used to cycle this will eventually go into a little holding tank, and I'll put more select fish in here. And the tank is just about to that point where I can start adding other things to it and remove some of the minnows that I use to cycle it out. Although they're very interesting to watch, very cheap, but they constantly active. They just add a lot to the tank. And I want to do a lot of live bears. You see there's that's a male guppy there. And I do, how I said, I have the female. She looked like she's about ready to let go some babies there. I'm going to have to be separating her. But back to the filter system. The filter I'm using on this is a homemade one. Down here is the sump itself. And basically, I don't know if you can tell, But this is made out of one of those plastic drawers. You can buy them very inexpensive. And this is a storage box. You just drill holes in each drawer and it drains down on top of each other till it goes back in the bottom, pumps it back into the tank. I've used a 3-layer system. The first layer I just use like a bonded piece of Dacron, and I just cover the entire tray. It's kind of like the polishing area, catches most of the debris. The second layer is nothing but soft Dacron. And then the last layer, I have lava rock. This is lava rock I got at the Home and Garden store, like Lowe's, and it sets up biological action on it. And you can see it works really good. The only cloudiness I had when I very first set this up, I had some cloudiness because things like the gravel and stuff till it stabilized out. Once it did, you know, it cleared right up, and I've done a few water changes on it. My little baby there on the side, right? We'll call her Panda. It's like a Panda Molly. But you can see, you look down through the endways, how crystal clear the water stays. And another reason besides filtration is the amount you feed. Especially new aquariums like to feed too much, and overfeeding causes cloudiness, and so you feed tiny amounts. A lot of people will think, well, my fish are always hungry. Well, as a rule, fish are always hungry. They're going to be begging for food constantly. You can feed them 5 minutes later, they're begging for food. What happens is people tend to feed it more and more and more, and they don't realize there's particles that is not getting ate up, and it decays and rots and can cause cloudiness. So that's one of the other big reasons that you get cloudiness, especially in a new tank that hasn't been cycled. It takes between a month and 6 weeks to cycle a tank, and after that you'll have a pretty good biological bed set up in your filter system. This is my 20-gallon tank. It's been set up just about a month now. It just finished its cycle that it's went through. And again, you see I've got some iridescent sharks, but I have a lot of, these are feeder goldfish. Again, use the feeder goldfish to cycle the tank because they're inexpensive. They will be removed out of here, and I will be putting some other things. I think I'm going to use some parrotfish in this tank. But I wanted to talk a little bit about test kits. I noticed so many people are into the numbers that their test kit, checking pHs, you know, your ammonia levels, your nitrates, and these are all important, and it's nice to know what the levels are. I don't test. I don't use test kits. Never found a need to use them, but it does not hurt to use a test kit because you know where your number's at. But the downside to using a test kit, sometimes your numbers get a little bit off and you tend to panic and worry about it and stress over it, and kind of, my book, takes away a little bit from the enjoyment of keeping aquarium fish. And so I've always chose not to. Now, I've been doing this for a number of years, and generally I can tell by the looks of the water or something's going on with the fish that there's a problem somewhere. And even if you test, one of the main things you do when you have a problem, you do a water change. And I did a water change this morning. I changed 5 gallons here in this 20-gallon tank. And that's an important thing, to keep up on your water changes, keeping fresh water in there. Remembering when you do it, your water, if you live in the city and have chlorine, you want to dechlorinate your water. I like to use aquarium salt, or I particularly use what I use, swimming pool salt. It's non-iodized, pure 100% salt, no additives to that, and I'll use that, and that helps a lot in adding electrolytes, adding the slime back to the fish. It's very helpful. I've always used a lot of 100% pure salt. Table salt has iodine in it, so you don't want to use that. But again, I said I don't test. A lot of people like to touch their pH, and if you have an exotic fish or breeding or for some other reason, it doesn't hurt to keep your pH where you're at. But the issue with the pH is wherever your water comes from. I happen to have well water here. Whatever your water comes from, out of the well, it has its own pH, and it naturally balances out to a point in your tank, and your fish do adapt. Unless you have some exotic breed, which don't, your most of the time your fish will adapt to whatever pH. I've never had an issue with pH in 40 years I've done this. I have never changed the pH in a tank. I've bred fish off and on, and even there I didn't. But you know, you can get detailed and change your you can change your pH around. You can do all your testing if you so. And that's another facet of the hobby. You can do that, and it definitely will not hurt nothing, but it possibly could stress you out. And that's one reason I choose not to you know, go through the testing thing. So I don't test. None of these tanks here have been tested. I haven't, even when I had my pet store, I didn't test the water. I would test them for the customers because it made them happy. Plus, if they set up a new tank, I could see if they had ammonia in their tank and advise them whether to add fish or not at that point. So if they had a high ammonia level, I would say, you know, maybe you better wait till that comes down before you add fish. Again, to the filtration system, this is another sump that I made, homemade. This one had just little pieces and parts left over, so it cost me hardly nothing. This is a mini sump. Put my hand in here. You see how small this is. This is a little drawer I found at Target, and I've done the same thing. You know, I've drilled holes in each one of the drawers. Top here, I've got just a bonded filter pad, background pad. Second drawer, I have floss, filter floss. Second drawer down, I've got lava rock. I'm finding this lava rock, it makes excellent filtration for your biological action. It's cheap, and you do need to clean it well when you first get it from the store because it's quite dirty. But once you get it cleaned out, it works really, really good for a substrate. And showing you a lava rack here, I've made a little thing in my 55. This is the lava rack that I use. I use the smaller pieces. Especially on this smaller sump I made. The bigger sump, you could use some of the bigger pieces. But see, this is lava rock. I made a little display with it in this tank here. But you see it's very porous, and it sets up for a lot of biological action in it. And so it does a good job, and I'm really tickled that I'm also using, in the sump on this one, I'm using lava rock for my substance. And very cheap. I think a big bag of that was $3.99 is all I paid for it, so it was very inexpensive. And then again in this 20, this is something I have never done before, is use sand. This is swimming pool filter sand that I used. I really like it. Any debris tends to lay on top of it. You can vacuum that out very easily when you're doing a water change if you got debris laying on the top. But I really am liking this a lot. I've always thought about trying sand as a substrate, and I'm just this one I did it, and I'm kind of tickled with it. They say it packs down and can release some problems down in it, but I haven't had it long enough to tell you that. But I do like the sand. Again, very, very cheap. 50-pound bag is like $5.50. This is my 30-gallon tank. It's been up for about 3 months. You see I got a great big old pacu in there, which she's definitely going to outgrow this tank. Those things grow very fast, but it was very hardy. And again, I actually used the same goldfish you saw in my 20. I used that to cycle this tank, and worked out well, and it's well cycled now. Eventually this is going to have African cichlids in this tank is what it's going to come out. See, I've used some bricks to make some decorations and hiding spots. Got this cool little alligator. I love my little alligator. I think he adds a lot, especially in Florida here. We have a lot of gators around, and so I have my own little gator that I saw him, I had to have him. So anyway, this is my 30, and again, filtration. I do have a power filter. Each of my tanks I do run a power filter, but as well, in this tank I have a dry sump filter that I used, and this was a manufactured one, and these can run upwards $300, and the ones that I'm building out of the plastic drawers that I showed you, less than $100 you can put one of those together, so quite a savings. So if you're a little handy and want to have another little project, you can build these sumps. And the nice thing about these sumps, the heater sitting right in here, so the heater is not inside the tank, and this one has an overflow box. My other ones I'm using a PCV overflow. They're a little more temperamental. This type of box works better, and then it flows, you can see back here, again I'm getting reflections there, but it flows back into the tank, flows down in it from here. But again, this is my 30, and I said I'm using sumps on these. Filtration is your #1 key to a successful aquarium, because you got to keep that water quality good for your fish, and by using a good filtration system and not overfeeding, you'll get a good water quality and maintain it. Your fish will thrive in it. All right, a few little things I wanted to cap off that people don't think about. Whenever you're cleaning aquarium equipment and your hands and everything, never use soap. Back years ago when I had my pet store, I would question people about soap. I'm very careful about no soap sprays. Use nothing on the glass, Windex. Use none of that stuff around your tanks, because that definitely is going to give you a problem, and most people don't realize it or think about it. Whenever you're working in your tanks and that, some of the ladies like to use hand lotions. It definitely is no good. You don't want to use any of those lotions or anything on your hands. You know, a good way to make sure, wash your hands in hot water only before you get ready to work, and make sure you don't have any things. You get residual, soap leaves residual, and that can really give you a lot of problem by that residual soap even left on your hands and that. So you got to think, anything toxic around your tanks will cause a problem, and all of a sudden you'll start losing fish, and you'll try to think, well, man, what happened here? You know, I don't know. Nothing seemed like it changed, but you didn't realize maybe you had just washed your hands with soap, and it got into the tank and left a residue in your tank, and could cause your fish to die. Sprays around, furniture polish, this is the stuff in the air. It can be absorbed. This is a living box, and anything that can be taken into it can make it toxic to the fish. And so that's one of the big things you must always keep in mind. What if I have around my tanks, the water I'm drawing, where am I getting my water source from? Is it being contaminated by any chemicals or anything? So you got to keep this in mind all the time there, and you'll have a successful. I used to always try to be very informative in my pet store to help people be successful in their aquarium hobby. Because if I'd have a lifelong customer this way, if they were successful, they'll be back, you know, and purchase more things off of me. So, you know, it was a twofold. It helped them be successful, and it helped me out too as a pet store owner. You know, when you go to the pet store, they're there as a business to make some money, and good ways to make money is make happy customers, and they do come back. So there's some things to keep in mind. I wanted to show you this little tank here I made up. This is just one of those storage boxes. It's one of the clear ones. They're not exactly clear, but they're as clear as they're going to be. And I set this up with a heater, and I've got a power filter on it, and I've been cycling this tank for almost a month. And I'm going to use this tank for maybe several different things. I showed you I had some feeder goldfish and some minnows and stuff that I don't want in my main display tank, and I'll probably store them in this tank here till I can find maybe somebody wants them, or if I set up another tank, I'll use them again. Or I can use this tank as a hospital tank. Get maybe a fish that's been hurt, picked on by the others, and they can recover in here. And this here, I just threw some sand in the bottom of it, and I have down in here, I have old filter bag that had some charcoal in it. I threw that right out of the tank that's been cycled to help add the bacteria to get this tank cycled through. And I even put LED lights in there. I had these LED strips that I bought real cheap here. I'll turn those on and show it to you. Yeah, there's this little tank with the LEDs lit up, and you can see in there pretty good. You'll be able to see the fish. Not as clear as a glass tank, but it's virtually cost me. It did cost me originally, but I had them, so I didn't have to buy nothing extra. I had a little power filter, and I had a heater, and as you can see the top, I just mounted them up there, drilled some holes, and zip tied them to the top there, and so I'll be able to come out here, whatever fish is in here, either hospital tank or storage, I'll be able to enjoy them with the little LED light that I made. So just a little cheap aquarium. It's really a full aquarium. You can make an aquarium this way. If you wanted to save money, you could do the same thing. Put some proper filtration on it and set it up just like a regular tank there. And I said it's not as nice as a glass tank, but it definitely would work if you was on a strict budget. Hey, I hope this little video helped you out and showed you some of the things that I do to keep my tanks here. Like I said, I've been at it for a long time, and I've been pretty successful at it. And so hope you enjoyed this, hope it helped you out, and especially some of the newcomers to the hobby, that they can find a good way to keep their tanks balanced out and be successful in keeping their fish in that. A lot of people have different ideas. A lot of people, like any other hobby, is full of all kinds of different ideas and that. And as long as they work, they're good. You know, that's not the problem. As long as whatever you do is successful at it, that's the way you should do it. But these are some of my ideas and how I maintain my tanks and keep them up. So if you enjoyed this video, hey, do me a favor, give us a thumbs up, and if you have any comments, leave it in the comment box. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. We make all kinds of videos from, I have a morning coffee chat I do every morning. Done things on camping, road trekking, motorcycles, just all kinds of subjects that I can think of. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys the next time.